Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. Liverpool are taking on Premier League runaway leaders Manchester City at Anfield on Sunday afternoon. It's an absolutely massive game. It is huge for Liverpool's season, and for us fans, it is really the first opportunity to see us actually have a proper go at Manchester City, because I think we're all still a wee bit bitter from the game against them earlier on in the season at the Etihad, where things were going okay for half an hour. Obviously we were 1-0 down, but we certainly were taking the game to Man City. It always looked like we had the chance of getting back into the game. I think Mo Salah actually skewered a chance wide when he could have levelled things up for Liverpool. And then obviously the red card for Sadio Mane happened. The defence basically sacked the game off for the last hour and decide that they can't be bothered anymore, and Liverpool ended up losing 5-0, and it was really disappointing. And obviously since then Man City have beaten pretty much every single team in their path, including all of Liverpool's top 6 rivals, so to lose against them isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world, as we have now seen. But it just feels like we could have had a proper go. We could have taken Man City on, gone toe to toe with them, and seen what this Liverpool team was actually like in a game against the Man City team of this season. And this is of course Liverpool's first proper opportunity, provided nothing like a silly red card happens again, to actually do that. And I think it's going to be an interesting one, because of course tactically you do wonder whether Liverpool are actually going to go toe to toe with this Manchester City side, because obviously while this Liverpool team are very good, and you shouldn't just look at the gulf in points between Liverpool and Man City and say, well, you know, they're 22 points better off than Liverpool are, or something like that, so they are 22 points better than Liverpool. The fact of the matter is Man City have simply been more consistent than Liverpool have this season, whereas Liverpool have actually shown identical form to Man City over the last 5 games. Both teams have won 4 and drawn 1 of their last 5 games in the Premier League. Man City have just used that form and had it all the way through the season, whereas Liverpool obviously had wobbly patches earlier on. They were drawing far too many games. They had a horrible loss to Man City, a horrible loss to Spurs, and stuff like that that's just stopped them building up the kind of consistency that Man City have shown. I'm not saying that Liverpool are better or even maybe as good as Man City. They are still just a better footballing side. But the idea that we are so bad that we should be losing 5-0 to Man City is ridiculous. However, in terms of going toe-to-toe, I think that would be a slightly arrogant idea from Liverpool. I just don't think it's the kind of thing we should be doing in this match, because obviously we've seen time and again, especially when teams like Arsenal play against Liverpool, they've tried to go toe-to-toe, they've tried to play a high line, they've tried to take the game to us, and they've left the stadium with their tails between their legs and looked ridiculous. And after every game we've just thought, why are Arsenal doing this? Why are Arsenal trying to go at Liverpool when they know exactly what's going to happen? So for Liverpool to do the same thing that Arsenal do against us, against Man City at the weekend, you know, it would feel a little bit silly, a little bit arrogant, and I think we should maybe try and employ a different game plan, something similar to what we actually did against them last season at Anfield when we beat them 1-0. Just defend a little bit, soak up the pressure, allow Man City to come onto us without ever, you know, inviting pressure on, and then just try and hit them on the break, get a goal here or there, and win the game that way. It worked for us last season. Obviously Man City, a very different prospect. We will have to bring our A game against them this time around, but if Liverpool do that, I think that's probably how we'll have our best chance of beating Man City. And on another note as well, beating Man City is also huge for Liverpool's season, because for all of our top 6 rivals, for all those teams that we are battling it out for 4th place, 3rd place, and even 2nd place, just basically trying to get into the Champions League against those other 4 sides, for all those teams as well, playing against Man City has almost become a guaranteed loss. It's almost a guaranteed dropped 3 points playing against them. So for Liverpool to say, actually no, we're going to beat these guys, we're going to get 3 points, would be huge in that race for the top 4. Not just as a psychological boost, not just for making a statement and saying, actually, we're better than you because we can beat Man City, but also just getting that extra 3 points that our rivals probably won't get. So yeah, absolutely massive game, absolutely huge. Going to be really interesting to see how Liverpool actually try and win it, but fingers crossed that we can. So team news going into the game, Mo Salah is available now after missing the last couple of matches with a little bit of a groin complaint. He was out of the game against Burnley, out of the one against Everton as well, but he joined the team for their warm weather trip to Dubai, where they went on a little training camp, the kind of thing that Jurgen Klopp just seems to absolutely love. As soon as he's got like over a week's break in his schedule, he's like, right lads, we're going on holiday. This time it was to Dubai. I'm sure they had a lovely time in the Middle East, had a great little training camp as well. Mo Salah fit and ready now. He's been part of full team first full first team training in the build up to this game, and so has Alberto Moreno, who has obviously been missing since the Spartak Moscow game, which was over a month ago now, I believe, with, I think it was an ankle complaint. He fell on it awkwardly in that game. He's been out for nearly 6 weeks now, but Jurgen Klopp did say a couple weeks back that he was going to be available for this game. He's been in full first team training as well, like Mohamed Salah, so he should hopefully be available as well. Apart from that, don't think there's been any other team news. Virgil van Dijk obviously has just been striding around the training pitch, looking boss, looking handsome, looking tall, strong, and generally great at footy. So he should hopefully be available for this game like he was against Everton, which is absolutely massive. So apart from that, yeah, don't think there's anything too notable. Obviously, no Phil Coutinho, because he's not a Liverpool player anymore, so who cares about him anymore? It's time to talk about how Liverpool are actually going to line up for this game without Phil Coutinho. Starting off with the goalkeeper, it's almost definitely going to be Simon Mignolet. Loris Karius obviously had another of his little mini auditions against Everton in the Cup. Didn't really impress. Of course, he didn't have that many opportunities to impress, but his big opportunity was, of course, the only shot on target that Everton had, and he didn't really take it. He didn't really show off what he had in his locker, to be honest. I mean, of course, it was a quick shot. It was well placed, but it was a side footer, and it was outside the box, and he didn't even dive for it. And I mean, you know, if you don't dive for it, there's no chance you're going to save it. If you do dive for it, there is always that little chance that you might actually stop the ball from going in the net. So a little bit disappointed with Loris Karius there. There is that other moment where he comes to claim a cross and drops it. I personally think he's actually fouled there, so not going to have a go at him for that. But yeah, didn't really impress there. Simon Mignolet hasn't really been impressing either. There is talk of Liverpool going in for a goalkeeper, potentially even in the January transfer window. People are mentioning names like Jan Oblak, probably a little bit out of our range, what with his release clause being 100 million, but also talk of us looking at Alisson from Roma, the Brazilian goalkeeper, apparently the first choice Brazilian goalkeeper as well, ahead of Manchester City's Ederson. Apparently it cost around £40 million. If Liverpool want my advice, go for it, buy him, please. But until then, it will be Simon Mignolet in goal. Then with the back four, I reckon it's going to be Joe Gomez at right back, Matip and Van Dijk at centre backs, and then I think it's going to be Andrew Robertson at left back. Obviously, Moreno back fit now. He was Liverpool's first choice centre back up until his injury. But Andrew Robertson, he's been impressive. He played very, very well in the Merseyside derby. He dealt really, really well with Yannick Bolasie. Obviously, Everton, I think they have Sterling going down that side, so it will be another tricky game for him. But with the kind of performance that he showed in the Merseyside derby and the kind of form he's actually been showing up until now, you know, he's really, really settled into that left back spot and has been showing some really good form. I don't really see why you'd mess with the lineup. I think potentially looking forward to the rest of the season, it's possible that Alberto Moreno could end up regaining his spot at left back, but for now I don't see why you'd mess things up. I think you should just keep Andrew Robertson, who's been showing some very good form, place your trust in him, and also, you know, give him a little bit of a boost, because if he's been playing so well while Moreno's been gone, and then as soon as Moreno comes back you say, okay, you're back in the under-23s, you're back on the subs bench, Moreno's the left back again, it's just a massive kick in the nuts for a player who's been playing really well. So I think Andy Robertson gets the nod at left back. Obviously, it's Matip and Van Dijk at centre-back as a centre-back pairing. There's a shout for Ranyar Klavan, who obviously has shown some pretty decent form recently and looked like he might have actually been partnered with Virgil van Dijk in training up until this game. But I just think for now, maybe stick with the centre-back pairing that actually did pretty well against Everton, and maybe think a little bit later in games that aren't quite as significant as Manchester City in the Premier League in January, which is also a very big stage in the Premier League campaign, before you think about tinkering with who your centre-back partners are. And then obviously it's Joe Gomez over Trent Alexander-Arnold, because he's just very, very good defensively, and I think Alexander-Arnold, you want to save him for the games against the smaller teams where he can do a little bit more of attacking. So that is how I think Liverpool are going to line up defensively. As for the midfield, I reckon it's going to be Emre Can, Jorginho Wijnaldum and Adam Lallana. Obviously no Coutinho for this game. I think there's always a shout for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain to potentially be the step-in for Phil Coutinho here. I do quite like the way that Oxlade-Chamberlain links up with the front four, in that he has the ability to play in the midfield, but also he can get forward, he can play on the wing, he can play behind the striker. He's nice and versatile. He fits that transitional role between the midfield and the front three quite nicely. But I just think for this game against Man City, in terms of balance, the midfield of Can, Wijnaldum and Lallana actually looks quite good. In that all of those players, they've got a defensive side to their game and they've all also got an attacking side. You know, Emre Can will probably be doing the brunt of the defensive work, playing in that number 6 role. He will probably be looking to screen the back four a little bit and try and just cut out any Man City passes, stop them from threatening our defence too much. But if asked to get forward, if asked to do a little bit of marauding into the behind enemy lines, then he's certainly got that in his locker. Jorginho Wijnaldum will probably be the box-to-box player in this midfield three. He'll probably do like the closest to what we've got in terms of 50-50 role distribution between playing defensively and playing attackingly. Obviously, with it being Man City, they are going to pose a lot of attacking threats, so he'll probably do a wee bit more defending than he will do attacking in this game. Obviously, we've seen Jorginho Wijnaldum has got both of those sides of a game in his locker, and then Adam Lallana will probably be the stand-in for Phil Coutinho in that Fab Four, front four that Liverpool have got going. He played in a front four kind of formation last season. That was when he was actually playing his best football, just behind the front three. So again, we know he's got that in his game. We know he can do it, but we also know that he has got that defensive side as well, playing as a central midfielder, as we saw against Burnley when one of their players was through on goal in that game on New Year's Day, and he just slide tackles that player, sticks his leg out, sends the ball out for a throw-in absolutely brilliantly. So all those players, they've got a defensive side, they've got an attacking side. I think balance-wise, it's the perfect midfield you want for a game against Man City. The one issue is, of course, whether they've got the quality, whether they've got the ability to actually take Man City on in the centre of the park. And for me, it just comes down to whether or not they bring their best possible game. I think if all those players are on their A game in the centre of the park, then they can take the game to Man City and they can run the show from the centre of the park. Obviously, if they're not playing to the best of their ability, Man City could have them on toast. But we just have to cross our fingers and hope that with this being an absolutely massive game, all of those players are massively fired up and they want to do their best and win the game for Liverpool. And then the front three, it is of course Mo Salah, Roberto Firmino, Sadio Mane. Again, a shout for Oxlade-Chamberlain there as well. He's been playing very well. He could potentially usurp Mane in that left wing slot. But for now, I think Mane, he deserves the benefit of the doubt. He's had a little bit of an iffy patch, but he looks like he might be coming out of it after a goal against Burnley and an okay performance against Everton. So Mane gets the nod for me there. And then, of course, Roberto Firmino down the centre. He's absolutely great. He's absolutely boss. He's the perfect number 9 for Liverpool in Jurgen Klopp. And then Mo Salah, King of Egypt, Liverpool's undisputed best player, pre-Coutinho and now post-Coutinho as well, will be bringing up the right flank for Liverpool's front three. So that is how I think we are going to line up. So Man City, the team that really don't need any introduction. They are, of course, as I said at the top of the video, the runaway Premier League leaders. They're like 20 points ahead of all their competitors now, or something ridiculous like that. So they are the most formidable opponent that Liverpool have come up against so far this season. Obviously, we might be against Barca or Real Madrid in the Champions League later on the season. There's an argument that Man City are actually even better than those guys as well. Potentially the best team in Europe. So like I say, don't need much of an introduction. They are just very, very good at footy. But if Liverpool want to be optimistic going into this game, if they want to take any positives when it comes to looking at their opponents, Man City haven't quite been blowing their opponents away recently, and I think some of it could be attributed to fatigue, because earlier on in the season when Liverpool were doing lots and lots of rotation around about November time, everyone was looking to Man City and saying, well, their midfield three plays every single game, week in, week out, weekend and midweek, and they're absolutely fine. Pep Guardiola is absolutely fine doing that for every single game, and we were just kind of saying, well, if they can do it, why can't Liverpool? But it is possible now that we are seeing the effects of that Man City are starting to tire just a wee bit. You know, they even drew a game recently. They drew against Crystal Palace, which from what we've seen with Man City so far this season, doesn't really happen very often. And of course, over their last two games against Bristol City and against Burnley in the FA Cup and the League Cup, they haven't quite got going throughout the entire game. You know, they've gone 1-0 down in those games. They've been 1-0 down for actually a significant portion of the match. And while they did go on to win both of those games eventually, they never quite hit fifth gear for an extended period of time. They did kind of look like they were getting a little bit lethargic. Obviously, they're still a very good footballing side. They've got some fantastic players in that team, but there's the tiny little suggestion that maybe they're not in top form at the moment. So if Liverpool do want to take positives going into this game, then that is probably what I'd focus on. And they have, of course, played 2 games since Liverpool last played, so they could be a tiny bit tired. You know, while Liverpool were on their lovely warm weather training camp in Dubai, Man City were slugging it out against the Championship side in the League Cup on a Tuesday night. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we won't be seeing the full Man City this weekend. And if Liverpool can be the full Liverpool, then I think we've got every chance of actually having a go and maybe even winning this game. So here are my 3 reasons why I think Liverpool will beat Man City. So first of all, I mentioned the 5-0 trouncing earlier on in the video that Liverpool suffered at the hands of Man City at the Etihad in September. And one of the problems with that game was that Liverpool's defence basically just couldn't be bothered. As soon as it got to 2-0, they were like, well, we're not winning this game, so we might as well just not even try for the last 45 minutes of the match. So I think when you look at Liverpool's defence now and the state it was in earlier on in the season and the kind of morale that I think has spread around our defence, certainly since Virgil van Dijk arrived, we are in a much better situation now than we were earlier on in the season. And a lot of it, I think, is down to that man that I just mentioned, Virgil van Dijk. I mean, our defence just looked so composed in the FA Cup tie against Everton. Obviously, they still conceded a goal, but it was on the counter-attack. It was the kind of situation that I don't think we'll be getting ourselves into against Man City. I don't think we'll leave ourselves as exposed at the back because we know the threat Man City have, whereas the idea of Everton counter-attacking is almost, you know, a little bit weird. You look at the players they've got, you look at the pace in their side, and you think Everton counter-attacking, never going to happen. But Man City, you see Sane, you see Sterling, you see Aguero, you see De Bruyne, and you think, okay, maybe we'll leave a couple more players back for this corner than maybe we did against Everton. So I can't really see Liverpool getting caught out like that against Man City, and I just think in general the defence just looks so composed. Van Dijk just exerts this authority and this composure and this calmness over all the players around him, and it just makes our defence look so much better. Like I said, with the Everton tie, if I had to pick out one side of our game that was actually good, because we certainly weren't at our best against Everton in that game, it was the defence. The defence actually looked pretty good and was probably the best aspect of our game in that tie. So hopefully Liverpool can bring that kind of defensive abilities into this game. I'm expecting them to play the same back 4 as they did against Everton. Obviously different goalkeeper, potentially better goalkeeper in Simon Mignolet, which will cheer Van Dijk up because I think he got a little bit annoyed with Loris Karius in that game, constantly telling him, you know, come on Loris, claim the ball. And Loris Karius was like, what, me, the goalkeeper, claim the ball? What? And it got on Van Dijk's nerves a little bit. I think he was a little bit annoyed at how nervy Loris Karius was. So hopefully Simon Mignolet won't be doing that, and that'll cheer Virgil van Dijk up as well. So I'm hoping and expecting that we'll actually see a very good defensive performance from Liverpool. And as I mentioned earlier on in the video, I think we probably should not park the bus, but maybe look to sit off Man City a little bit and allow them to do a little bit of attacking. And hopefully the fact that we have now got a better defence than we did when we played them earlier on in the season should mean that that will help us win this game. And second of all, if I have to pick a player who I think will be absolutely huge, absolutely massive, and really, really influential in this game for Liverpool, if it isn't Van Dijk, who of course I mentioned in the first reason, then it is King of Egypt, King of the world, King of our hearts, King of the Liverpool country, Mo Salah. Mo Salah, because like I said, he's Liverpool's best player. He was our best player before Coutinho left, and he's our best player now, certainly after Coutinho left. He's absolutely brilliant. He's absolutely boss. And these are the kind of games where Liverpool will look to Mo Salah to save us, to change the game, to help us out and to win us the match. Because Mo Salah, if there's anything you can take from the way he's played this season, he just looks like the kind of guy who on any occasion, in any match, against any opponent, he can score goals. He is just a natural goal scorer now for Liverpool. He has that wonderful ability wherever you put him on the pitch, kind of like Luis Suarez did. Obviously, we don't want to make Suarez comparisons because we don't want to put too much expectation on his shoulders and we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. But he just has that little bit of a quality like he showed in the Merseyside derby. Plonk him anywhere in and around the box and he can just do a turn, send a player to the shops, and suddenly he's got a great chance on goal and he just curls it in and Liverpool are 1-0 up. And this is the kind of game where you need a player like that. It's the kind of game where you say, look, we're probably not going to get that many chances. The chances that we do get probably aren't going to be as clear-cut as they are normally. So we just need someone who gets the ball and says, it's all right, I'm still going to score, I'm still going to get the goal. And Mo Salah is that kind of player for Liverpool. And if we do sit back attack and try and get opportunities on the counter-attack, which I'm expecting us to do, then Mo Salah is the kind of player that we need to just pop up in those rare opportunities and score the goals that are going to win Liverpool the game on Sunday afternoon. And then finally, I think Liverpool's wingers, and of course this includes Mo Salah against City's fullbacks, could be where we win the game. Because like I said, if we sit back, we're going to look to get Man City on the counter-attack. And Man City, as we know, love to tell their fullbacks to bomb forward. They are kind of like what Liverpool were until there was, I think, a slight tactical tweak recently where Jurgen Klopp said to his fullbacks, maybe just, you know, I've told you to basically be extra wingers, but perhaps just do a wee bit more defending, you know, sit back a little bit, help out the centre-backs, help out the defensive midfield, and maybe just stop goals going into the net. And I think if we are to do a lot of defending against Man City, which with them being the best attacking side potentially in the land, we will have to do, then those fullbacks, our fullbacks, are going to sit off, and I think Man City's fullbacks are going to bomb on a little bit and try and actually have a go. And with the talent that Liverpool have got on the wings, with Mo Salah on one side up against Fabian Delph. Let's remember, obviously, Fabian Delph, he's been alright at left back, but he is still Fabian Delph, a midfielder playing at left back. And if you've got Mo Salah on that flank up against him, that fills you with joy, it fills you with optimism, and it fills you with hope that Liverpool can absolutely do the business against Manchester City. And then, of course, on the other side, they've got Kyle Walker. He loves to get forward, he loves to get crosses into the box, and we've got Sadio Mane. And if they afford Mane and Salah the space that I am hoping they will, with their fullbacks bombing on, then Liverpool have got every chance of just smashing Man City on the counter-attack and winning the game on Sunday afternoon. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a like? Don't forget to stick around for the FIFA 18 predictor. Yeah, that show is returning later on today, so stick around for that. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that button there. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. If the FIFA predictor is out already, then the button to watch it will be there. Apart from that, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter as well, and I'll be back later on for the FIFA predictor for Liverpool against Man City at Anfield on Sunday afternoon. Bye for now.